Hey folks, this is Aces back again with another Baldur's Gate 3 exploration video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I do high-level analytical content on the tactics and combat of CRPGs, but overwhelmingly Baldur's Gate 3. That's my main game that I cover. I covered early access extensively, and in this series I'm making short informal videos just to kind of share some thoughts I've had on the game that could spark a discussion while I actually explore the game in my first playthrough of full release. So by informal I mean that I'm limiting the amount of time it takes to record and edit these, and I know that can be kind of a pain. I don't edit out a lot of the long pauses or the ums that I do in my normal videos, but the idea is that I do this quick so I can get back to what's important, which is playing the game and mastering it so I can make that content you guys really want from me. These are just little fun things. If the long pauses bother you, I recommend watching in 1.5. Okay, so there's a few ideas I want to talk about in this video, and the main one has to do with a build concept that I think is really interesting and could be really powerful, but I don't have time to test. So selfishly, I'm letting this out here so that if you're interested in it, you can test it, and please let me know how it performs in the comments of this video or on Reddit. I'll probably share this on my subreddit and maybe on the BG3 builds Reddit. So please let me know. All right, let's look at the build. This is a wizard build, and the concept is to stack various sources of damage reduction with spells which do retaliation damage. And the synergy between this is obvious. This is one of the best builds. Something like this was one of the best builds in early access. If you deal retaliation damage and you stack that with damage reduction, you're able to take more hits, which allows you to deal more retaliation damage. And you get this synergy where you're both extremely difficult to kill and you're also killing people at the same time. If you can make it work, it's extremely powerful in tactics games, but especially turn-based tactics games which function on an action economy. Retaliation damage is using enemy actions to deal damage. You're not only mitigating their action, you're also dealing damage with it. It's such an incredible combo from an action economy perspective. So let's start by looking at the sources of damage reduction that you can use in this build. There are two really strong ones that I have in mind. There may be more. Like I said, this is just a concept. I haven't explored it. The first one is Arcane Ward. This is the feature that you get from the Abjuration Wizard subclass. At level 2 you get it. If you are a longtime listener of mine, Larian has changed this from how it worked in early access. So here's how it works right now. Arcane Ward blocks damage equal to its charges and then loses one charge. Casting Abjuration spells will add charges equal to the level of the spell. So basically you can see I have stacked up in the save 11 charges of Arcane Ward. That means if I take damage, I will reduce that damage by 11. And then I will lose one stack. So the next time I take damage, I'll reduce it by 10, and the next time after that, I'll reduce it by 9. You get the idea. You stack up these stacks by casting Abjuration spells, and it's amount equal to the level of the spell that you cast. So in this save, I've managed to stack up 11. One of the big ways was through the Armor of Agathis spell, which I got from the Icebite robe I'm currently wearing. This is a 3rd level upcast version of Armor of Agathis. Armor of Agathis is a spell you actually want from this build, and wizards don't usually get it. So just as an aside, it's probably a good idea to dip either the Cold Dragon Ancestry Sorcerer for it or the Warlock for it. Just one level will get you Armor of Agathis, and then you can upcast it with your regular wizard spells. The other way I stacked up 11 stacks is through the Arcane Lock spell. So you can see you can cast Arcane Lock on a chest in your camp. There, that gave me another 3 stacks of Arcane Ward. And then you can just dismiss the spell and cast it again. This is a way to kind of pre-buff for fights if you are interested in doing that. And then, of course, there are Abjuration spells that you want to be casting in fights. There aren't that many. Pretty much there's just 2 ones that you spam, and they are Shield, of course, and Counterspell. So casting these whenever you get the opportunity will add a lot of damage reduction stacks to your wizard. Dismissal is also, Banishment is another abjuration spell that's worth casting, but you don't really spam it that often because, of course, it's a concentration spell. Anyways, that is Arcane Ward, but that's not the only source of damage reduction we're going to be getting. The other one comes from the Skinburster Halberd. This is a magical halberd that you get in Grimforge, if I'm remembering right. Wherever you get it. I'm pretty sure it's Grimforge, but I remember getting it around level 5 or 6, so that's when this build kind of comes online. Skinburster is a halberd, and it's a +1 halberd that gives this effect. When the wielder deals melee damage with this weapon, they gain 2 turns of Force Conduit. Force Conduit, for every turn that you have, you're going to reduce physical damage by 1. Yeah, that's it. So I can just show you how this works if we enter turn-based mode. So I have this halberd equipped. I'm going to attack Lae'zel. Okay, the attack hit, so I gained 2 turns of Force Conduit. That means all physical damage dealt against me is going to be reduced by 2. And then I'm going to decay 1 stack per turn. Make sense? So if you use your action to attack every round, you're going to gain 2 stacks, but then you're going to decay 1, so you'll be improving your stacks by 1 per round, which is not enough to really give us significant damage. And that's why it's best to combine this with this build to take Polar Master feat as your first feat at level 4, because this will give you a bonus action attack. And as you can see, it hits. I got another 2 turns of Force Conduit. Polar Master also allows you to proc reaction attacks more reliably, so you could potentially get another 2 from that. However, there's a lot competing for your reaction on this build. There's Shield Spell, Counter Spell, and Opportunity attacks, so just bear that in mind. Anyways, as you can see, by combining these, I now have 14 Arcane Ward stacks. I have 4 Force Conduit stacks. That means I will be reducing physical damage by 18. Every physical damage that hits me, I'm reducing by 18. And then, if it's non-physical, I'm still reducing it by at least 14. And there's going to be a kind of rhythm to this build where you will lose Arcane Ward stacks, but you're going to be gaining Force Conduit stacks. So, that's kind of the trade-off as fights go on. And that's not the only damage reduction that we can stack with this, because there's still just run-of-the-mill resistances. And the easiest way to do that is to combo this build with a cleric in your party who can cast Warding Bond. Warding Bond is going to give you resistance to all damage. So that's going to be having damage that you take at the outset, and then you're going to be reducing it on top of that by however many Force Conduit stacks you have, or however many Arcane Ward stacks you have, and the result is that you take almost no damage if you have enough stacks. If you play right and stack up enough, you take 0 damage. So that's already great. Taking no damage is amazing, but if you're taking no damage but also dealing no damage, then you're not really a useful character. So that is where the retaliation damage comes in. Retaliation damage is damage that procs when enemies attack you. There's 2 primary sources that we're going to be getting this from. The first one is Armor of Agathis, like we already talked about. This will give you 5 cold damage per spell level that you upcast this, and it lasts for as long as you have the temporary hit points, which is going to be a long time when we're reducing damage to 1 every single attack. So Armor of Agathis is incredible. The other big one is Fire Shield. This is a 4th level wizard spell. You can cast it as a cold variant or a fire variant. We definitely want the cold variant. It's going to synergize much better with some other features. So yeah, whenever enemies attack you, this is concentration free, by the way. They're going to take 2d8 cold damage from Fire Shield, and then however many cold damage from Armor of Agathis that you upcast. And remember, this is cold damage, so it's doubled against wet targets. Now, we already wanted a cleric in our party to cast Warding Bond on us, right? That cleric can also cast Create Water to make melee targets attacking us in melee wet, and we'll be doubling all of this retaliation damage. I mean, you will just kill them before you run out of these stacks. It's extremely reliable. I mean, we're talking 30, 40, maybe 60 damage, depending on what point you are in the game. And remember, that's damage you're dealing action economy free. They're actually spending their action for you to kill them, which is the best action economy deal you can expect in a game like Baldur's Gate 3. I really think it can be good, but like I said, I have not tested it. I hope you will, and let me know in the comments. There's just a few other notes I want to talk about this build, some like item synergies that go with it. The first one is Ring of Elemental Infusion. I think I got this somewhere in Act 2. When you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, so elemental damage, using a spell or a cantrip, that element infuses your weapon, so until the end of your next turn, you will deal an additional 1d4 of that elemental damage type on your weapon attacks. Now, of course, we're going to be dealing a lot of cold damage every round, just in retaliation damage. So that's going to be infusing our weapon attacks, which we want to be making anyways with our halberd, to deal a little bit extra cold damage that is absolutely doubled against wet targets. If you can find ways of getting other elemental damage into the build without compromising your action economy, you could maybe even get more damage on your weapon attacks with the Ring of Elemental Infusion. Definitely something interesting to play around with. Another item, the Flesh Melter Cloak. Again, I got this in Act 2. Can't remember where exactly, but this will give you 1d4 acid damage in retaliation. So it's not a whole lot of extra damage, but it's something. And the fact that we're expecting to get attacked a lot, that will add up. And then finally, this is the really interesting one, is the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Again, I got this in Act 2 somewhere. When you wear this helmet, you deal damage with a weapon attack, which we want to be doing, you will gain Arcane Acuity. So what is Arcane Acuity? The affected entity will get +1 to its spell attack rolls and difficulty class per turn remaining on the buff. So it's a lot like Force Conduit, and we stack it up the exact same way. So you should have equal Force Conduit as you have Arcane Acuity. For every turn remaining on Arcane Acuity, we get +1 to our spell attack rolls, and here's the important part, to our spell DC. And remember, we're gaining roughly 3 Arcane Acuity per turn if we're hitting both of our attacks. So you will very quickly stack up +6, +9, +12 of a large amount of Arcane Acuity with this build. And so after a few rounds, you'll just be able to cast a Hold Person, a Dominate Person, a Hold Monster spell, a Slow spell, whatever you want, with such an overwhelming DC that the only way enemies can resist it is if they have, if they happen to roll a 20 on their saving throw. So not only is this a kind of tanky damage dealer build, after a few rounds, it actually becomes an insane controller. So yeah, that's pretty much all the synergies in the build. Just some notes on how to execute it. Again, you want to take at least 1 level of Cold Draconic Sorcerer or Warlock to get Armor Vagathus. That's very important. I wouldn't do more than 1 level. You have to go either human or half-elf to get the proficiency in halberds that you need, and also the light armor so that you can wear the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. That is very important. You could do this build on Gale, although I will say you really want strength in this build so you can reliably land your attacks. So it's probably better on a custom build. So people, if you want to try it on Gale, let me know how it goes. But yeah, strength is actually the most important attribute on this build, because intelligence is mostly giving us spell DC, right? But we get spell DC just from hitting attacks. So you actually want to invest, if you hit enough attacks, if you invest in strength to hit it, the intelligence won't matter as much. But pretty much strength is the only stat that matters to this. You want your AC to stay low so that the AI actually targets you. So Dex doesn't really matter. Con doesn't really matter because we won't be taking that much damage anyways, because we're reducing it all. And as I've said, Int matters, but not as much as Strength, because you just want to build up the DC through Arcane Acuity. And yeah, wisdom and charisma. It's just about saving throws. So it's actually a very non-mad build, this one. At least I think so. Please, I hope you will test it and let me know in the comments of either here or Reddit. I'll post the Reddit link in the description below. Okay, that's it for this build, but there's some other things I want to talk about in this video. The next one is the Bloodlust elixir. So we talked about elixirs in the last video I made, and at the time I didn't know about the Elixir of Bloodlust, so check this thing out. When you drink this elixir, you enter Bloodlust. Once per turn, when you kill a foe, you gain 5 temporary hit points, and an additional action replaces the effects of other elixirs. Now remember, elixirs last until your next long rest, so they're basically like an item slot. You want to drink at least one per long rest to give you a boost that lasts until your next one. You can only have one though. But this is easily the best one I've discovered so far. Giving you an extra action per turn when you kill a foe is incredible, and what it incentivizes is investing all of your build resources into damage. Because if you can reliably kill at least one foe in a round, you're going to get another action. And you're probably going to spend that action attacking. So all of that investment in damage just gets potentially doubled. The effect of this elixir being in the game really makes me think that fighters are an ascendant class in this game. Really just single class fighters, because they're going to get triple attack on their action. And with the existence of Elixir of Bloodlust, the action slot in the action economy is quickly becoming the most important. So one thing is I'm not sure how hard it is to make Elixirs of Bloodlust. If they're made rare enough, then everything I've said here is it's still true, but it's just not quite as dominant of a strategy. As overpowered as this is, it's looking really, really fun. So that's the Elixir of Bloodlust. Okay, I think I've talked enough in this video. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll try to come out with another one in the next few days. I'll catch you next time.